Joseph Woll missed practice on Tuesday, but all systems go for tonight's matchup against the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll break it all down on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's podcast brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. What's happening, Dave? How are you feeling on a Wednesday?
Doing pretty good. Today's a special day in the Morassutti household. It is Mama Morassutti's 66th birthday, the new birthday.
Shout out to Mama Morassutti. Happy birthday. Tell her I said happy birthday from me to her. You guys got any plans going out for dinner or anything?
Well, it's freaking freezing outside, so I think we might keep it indoors. She's like, just surprise me.
Yeah, have the family meet her at her house.
Yeah.
Instead. Good call. Probably a good call. Got a game tonight. Maple Leafs taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. And it's funny because for years, Columbus has been kind of a joke in the NHL, but they've always given the Maple Leafs fits. Like it just seems like for the last couple of years, Toronto's had a really tough time against the Blue Jackets. I think they've only won one of the last 4 matchups, and they just consistently give up 6 goals every single night, every time they play the Blue Jackets. So we'll see if that can come to an end tonight. Obviously, the Maple Leafs hoping to keep their winning streak alive. They've won 3 in a row, looking for 4. And Columbus, they've lost a couple in a row here, so they'll be looking to get back to their winning ways as well. But before we get into all that, why don't we detail what happened in practice for the Maple Leafs on Tuesday, and a little bit of a scare when the Maple Leafs get out there and they skate as a team, and Joseph Woll is not present for morning skate. You never love to see that based on the history there with Joseph Woll and his injuries. I mean, what went through your head when you saw Joseph Woll absent from practice?
Well, it's just funny because Leafs out for practice, not out there. Connor Dewar, Max Pacioretty. Oh yeah, by the way, Joseph Woll's not there. I'm like, can't lead with that first. Like with some of those, like it's probably the one guy everyone cares the most about not being out there. But I'm like also like, okay, so he's played a lot of games. This could be potential for a maintenance day. Let's just pray and hope that that's what it ended up being. And Craig Berube did a good job of just squashing any of the anxiety on that one, saying it was a main mistake because if he were to be out there, he would be diving at everything.
Yeah. So everyone relax. This is not injury related. It is a maintenance day. That is what the team is at least telling us, which, he hasn't looked injured. He's looked pretty good the last few games. He's played a lot, though, so it does make sense to get a maintenance day in here for him. Like, there hasn't been a lot of off days for the Maple Leafs. It's been legitimately like every other day for the last couple of weeks that they've played. There's been a few back-to-backs, like December and January, completely condensed schedule for Toronto. So with Anthony Stolarz injured, he's had to play a lot. 4 starts in the last 7 days for Joseph Woll. I don't think he's ever played that many games in that little amount of time, and he's had a big workload for a couple of those games too. So makes some sense for the team, get him off his feet when they can, especially if they're going to rely on him to be, that number 1 starter and to play 4 or 5 games moving forward. Just makes a lot of sense to kind of manage his health as best as possible, especially knowing that Joseph Woll does have that injury history as is.
Yeah, you got to play it as safe as possible because we don't know when Anthony Stolarz is going to come back. We've seen him on the ice a little bit, but he hasn't even been close to participating in a team practice, which leads me to think that this could be a post-Four Nations return potentially.
Yeah, which does make sense. I mean, we're only like 3 weeks away now at this point from Four Nations. Like it's coming up pretty quickly. It's not too far from here. Maybe he comes back the week before, but perhaps they want to get that little extra time to make sure that he's fully ready and healthy. But this will just depend on the team too, right? Whether or not Joe Woll continues to play the way that he has, not rush Stolars. Can Hildeby step in a pinch and play well? Someone else pointed out to us, we were talking about the good goaltending the other day on the podcast. I saw someone reached out and told us, hey, let's also not forget about Matt Murray, who apparently had back-to-back shutouts in the AHL and is playing some pretty good hockey down in the American League. I mean, 2 different leagues, I get that, but Murray's played well in the NHL before, and it's kind of between the ears with him, and it always has been. So if he's getting his confidence back, maybe he becomes a bit more of a factor too if goaltending injuries continue to persist throughout the season. But yeah, I think it makes sense, manage his health as much as possible and make sure that he's ready to go come playoff time. Don't tire him out beforehand. But I am curious, like, do you think he's done enough to reclaim the 1A role over the course of the last little bit? Like prior to Anthony Stolarz getting hurt, it seemed like Stolarz had taken on the 1A role in this tandem and become, the team's number one or better of the two, we'll say 1A, 1B. Would you say Joe Woll maybe has taken that back over the course of the last couple of weeks here?
Well, I think just by default, he's going to see a lot more time as the 1A as Stolarz gets back into a rhythm and back into playing, right? Because they're not going to throw a lot at Joel at Stolarz just because he's come back from an operation, right? So I think you're going to see Woll get a majority of the starts when Stolarz is back. Then once Stolarz is up to speed, then we'll see how that rotation fits on how he plays. I think it's always been about play and which goalie has kind of a groove going. So I mean, it's just by default. It's similar to when Woll was hurt. Stolarz played well. Guess what? Stolarz was considered the 1A. So it's kind of be a lot. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of that between now and the end of the year.
Ride the hot hand, I guess, at this point. Ride the hot hand. And right now, it is Joseph Woll. A couple other updates from practice. There was no Connor Dewar, no Max Pacioretty, as you noted earlier, Dave. They got hurt, and Dewar got hurt in the game the other night. Pacioretty also a couple nights ago, and neither are expected to play tonight against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So looks like Ryan Reeves is expected to check back in and play in place of one of those guys tonight. So no Dewar, no Pacioretty is expected. We'll get to the lineup in just a second here when we take a look at what the Maple Leafs might look like tonight against Columbus. But what they will look like, because skating once again together, is Morgan Rielly and Jake McCabe continue to play alongside one another and get another look. Today in practice, Craig Berube was asked what he thought of the group and that pairing, and he said he liked it, thought they looked good. Possibly need to give them a little bit more time to create that chemistry and see what it looks like. And Dave, if you roll it back to like 2 years ago when the Maple Leafs made the trade for Jake McCabe, I sat here hollering for them to put McCabe on the right side and allow McCabe and Rielly to be a formidable top pairing. I wanted it so bad, and it took until now for that to happen. Like, Keefe was so against Jake McCabe and Morgan Rielly playing against each other. I don't know why, or playing with each other. I don't know why he was. They never really got a fair shake, but it looks like Craig Berube is going to give them that opportunity, and I think they have the I think they have a chance to be a good pairing. Like, you look at how things might shake out and play well. OEL Tanev as a one pair, McCabe and Rielly as another pair. I think this could shake out to be a pretty good top four and have 2 solid pairs rolling.
Yeah, because we know that by playing McCabe and Tanev together, it just the other pairings just don't match up.
They're exposed.
Well,
they get exposed.
Exposing the level just drops off, right? And that's expected when you put your 2 best defensemen together. And you normally don't see NHL teams doing that very often, like just loading up one unit. So I am hoping that the spread of the wealth at least shows how important it is to have that balance. And maybe it also to show management, hey, if you really want to have this McCabe-Tanev pairing, be prepared to get someone who fits better with Morgan Rielly on the right.
Yeah.
Right. I know it's not something everyone wants to hear, but if you're looking at what's going to help this team compete in the playoffs, you can't have any potential shortcomings anywhere on the lineup. You have to address as many of them as you can.
Just go get Luke Shen. Just go get Shen back and let him rip with Riley again. Just do it, man.
Brad, do the thing.
Do the thing. Go get him. Let him play together and bring him back to Toronto for his third trip in the 6 and see how it looks. I don't know. He's a little older. I haven't watched him play much this year in Nashville. Like, maybe his plays dropped off too much. That is possible. So before I actually sit here and pound the table on it, maybe I should go and take a peek at what he's been up to. But it worked out really well a couple years ago when he got here to Toronto. So maybe a quick one more final ride here as a Maple Leaf. Let him play with Morgan Rielly again. Maybe that's what this team needs. But for tonight, it's going to be McCabe and Rielly as a duo, and we'll see how that looks against Columbus. All right, on the other side, we'll take a look at the rest of what the projected lineups are expected to look like from both sides and play a little co-sign, no-sign as well. I got a couple Leaf-related ones for you, Dave, and I got one that has to do with a couple of Eastern Conference teams making a push for the playoffs. We'll get to those next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by SelectQuote. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, the World Series, and even the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage for up to $5 million. No medical exam required, and it's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL. That is SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL today to get started. SelectQuote. They shop, you save.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti with you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, bringing you all things Leafs all the time. You can find us free and available wherever you get a podcast and also up on YouTube as well. We ask if you enjoy the content that you please hit subscribe, give us a like on the video, and leave a comment down below as well. I want to know, are you worried about tonight's game against the Columbus Blue Jackets? Because Dave, this is a team that Toronto has struggled with a lot recently. You take a look, 3 of the last 4 games Columbus has won, and they've scored 6 goals in each of those wins. Toronto can't stop this offense, apparently.
Yeah, and this is not a bad Blue Jackets team.
This year, they're playing really well this year.
Yeah, in past years, this was the clear trap game.
Yes.
Maybe because the Blue Jackets are actually playing better this year, the Leafs are going to actually pay a little more attention to them. I don't know. But it didn't happen the first time around, I will say.
No, but that was still a trap game because we didn't know Columbus was good then. They were still kind of junk.
Second half of a back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
There's some factors involved, but the Blue Jackets are no joke, and I would hope that the Leafs don't treat them like one, which I don't expect them to, but we never know sometimes with this team.
Yeah, no, for real. And especially lately, they've been one of the hotter teams. They've won 7 of their last 10 games. And you look at them from a goal scoring perspective, they're 8th in the league in goals per game. 3.26 goals per game. So they've been scoring a lot. Their power play is 11th in the league. So their power play has been going. And lately, they've been getting some really good goaltending too. The last 5 games, they got a 923 save percentage or 921 save percentage over the last 5 games. 943 save percentage over the last 4 games. Just a 140 goals against average. They've been excellent over the course of the last few weeks here. So it's going to be a tough test for sure. Why don't we take a look at what the Columbus Blue Jackets projected lineup is supposed to be tonight? And it's a lot of like young kids. Ultimately, it's a very youthful group, but it's a skilled group, and they're scoring and putting up some points. You've got Adam Fantilli, last year's number 2 overall draft pick. He's centering the top line with Kirill Marchenko, who's had an excellent season for the Blue Jackets, along with Dmitry Voronkov. So that line has really been contributing a lot. James Van Riemsdyk, Cole Sillinger, and Kent Johnson, bit of a younger line with the veteran JVR alongside them. Luca Del Bel Blues, a great handle, I would say, with former Maple Leaf Zach Aston Reese and was it Oliver Olivier, I think, but the Olivier is on that third line with them, and they've got Pytia, Corrali, and Danforth. Pyyyhtia. That is how this person's last name is spelled, and it frigs with my head. Absolutely frigs with my head, Dave.
By the way, it is Matthew Olivier.
Matthew Olivier, yes.
Yeah, you give always the better attempt at the names than me, so good on you for that one. With
Pytia. That's Pytia. I don't know. That's what we're gonna go with.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty decent attempt, I will say.
I thought so. The blue line, though, this is a much improved blue line, and it's like funny enough, it's a very similar blue line to what they had a year ago, but they've had one added ingredient in Dante Fabro since coming over from the Nashville Predators, where he kind of just fell out of favor and he was given away for nothing. I think he was a waiver claim, if I'm not mistaken.
He was.
And now he's playing on a top line with Zach Werenski, and those two together are playing at an all-star level. Dude's playing well over 22 minutes a night since getting to Columbus, and he and Werenski have been a great pairing. So that's going to be a tough tandem to beat, tough duo to beat. Defensively, Damon Severson and Ivan Provorov, Eric Johnson, and then Jake Christensen as the third pair defensively. And then not sure who the starting goaltender is going to be, either Elvis Merzlikins or Danil Tarasov. Either way, both goalies have played really well the last couple of weeks, so it doesn't really matter. You can flip a coin. It's going to be difficult, but is a much better team than they've been in the past. It's a group that has figured out how to win. They've gotten over the hump, and they got themselves fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah. Thank you, Nashville, by the way, for just giving away Dante Fabro for free. I don't know how.
Yeah, the Leafs could have probably used a guy like that for the third pair, huh? Right shot, size, has first round pedigree,
top
like
15
Toronto
pedigree.
Yeah, feels like the Leafs could have maybe looked into that a little bit.
And now look, somebody's gonna be like, "Well, the Leafs wouldn't have been able to claim off waivers." You're telling me the Leafs couldn't have found a way to make a trade? Like, how does Nashville not just go, "Hey, Dante Fabro's available"? I know his name was thrown out there. I think teams were just like, "Yeah, we're not balking at whatever you're looking to get, and just go for more waivers."
The number, the cap, because I think he's making like 2 or 3 million, isn't he?
I think he's at 2.5.
Yeah, so that would have been difficult for Toronto. They would have had to get rid of somebody. Like maybe they could have, I don't know. Did they had already make the Liljegren trade before Fabro? Like that could have been a little swapskis potentially, two struggling first round picks. But either way, they didn't get him. Columbus got him, and he's been excellent ever since anchoring. Well, not anchoring. He's saddled up next to Zach Werenski, who is our player to watch tonight for the Columbus Blue Jackets. If you're not paying attention to the season Zach Werenski is having, shame on you, because this guy currently on FanDuel is top 3 in the Norris odds, and he is having an unbelievable season. Leads all defensemen with 15 goals, leads all defensemen with 51 points. Sorry, it's 15 goals, 36 assists for a total of 51 points. And he's playing nearly 27 minutes a night, 26 minutes, 49 seconds on average each and every night. And he's got this team based on points percentage. The Columbus Blue Jackets are in a playoff spot based on points percentage. So I mean, he's clearly been the anchor and the guy who's propelled them. Sean Monahan's been out for a couple of weeks. He's been great this season, and they still continue to win games. Boone Jenner, their captain, has been hurt all year. Obviously, the tough situation this offseason by losing Johnny Gaudreau and that tragic incident. And then they traded away Patrick Laine and didn't get really much back in return for him. Yet somehow they've had a lot of people step up internally, and Dean Evison has his team playing extremely well. So Toronto can't take them lightly because, again, they took them lightly when the team stunk and got walloped. Well, now this team actually has some confidence. So definitely don't take them lightly.
Yeah, like he's healthy. He's dealt with so many injuries throughout the years. Especially the last couple of years. He is behind Quinn Hughes in points per game for defensemen. He's ahead of Cale Makar, so that's pretty impressive. I'm just reading a couple of stats here from NHL Edge. Fourth among defensemen in speed bursts of 20 plus miles per hour, and he's in the 94th percentile in top skating speed. Like that's what you get from a Werenski. I remember the Leafs. In the year that Werenski was drafted, there was chatter about the Leafs trying to trade down in hopes of getting Werenski, and because they didn't want to pick Werenski as high because he was not projected to go in the top 5 of that draft. They wanted to potentially trade down a bit.
Is that the Marner draft?
Yeah, it was the Marner draft. I think it was Columbus somebody didn't want to move up, but yeah, I know he's crushing it this year. He's always been a great offensive.
He wouldn't have been the Marner draft. I think he may have been maybe the Nylander draft.
No, he was the Marner
2015. 2015. Okay, yeah, he was the Marner draft. My bad.
So yeah, I mean, you look at that at the draft now, and it's like probably would have gone a lot higher considering, right?
This is one of the best drafts of all time, though. Like McDavid, Eichel, Marner, Hannafin, Werenski, Meyer, Rantanen. Like Barzell, Kyle Connor, Joel Eriksson Ek, Brock Besser, Travis Konechny. Like there's some good players. Like that's just the first round. Sebastian Aho was a second round pick. Mackenzie Blackwood was a second round pick here. Philip Rupe Hintz was a second round pick. Man, this is a good draft. Vince Dunn. Yeah, really good draft.
It was such a good draft. And yeah, like Werenski just the offensive instincts from him, but it's also how many minutes he's playing, and it's a little surprising he's playing so much given his injury past, but I think it's just a recognition of just how well he's playing. If he's playing so well, you're gonna use him. So get ready to see a lot of Zach Werenski in this game.
Yeah, he also has 180 shots too. Like the guy's just a shooting machine right now, also. So. Dude, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy the season that he's having. So, yeah, that's our locked on player to watch for the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. Zach Werenski from the point. All right, on the other side, Dave, let's play some cosine, no sign. There's a couple of things I want to get to in this segment. So we'll do that next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keep every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as always. Maple Leafs and Columbus Blue Jackets later on this evening at the Scotiabank Arena, where Toronto, they've played pretty well there this season, 19-9. I will say this though, Columbus, definitely a home team. On the road, the Blue Jackets have just a 6-13-4 record on the road compared to a 16-5-3 record on home ice. So that is one thing that should bode well for the Maple Leafs tonight. Columbus definitely not as good away from their home building when Dean Evason does not have control of the matchups. So that should make you feel a little bit better about it. So if you are going to go and place a wager on FanDuel, maybe you'll feel better back in the buds, knowing that they are going to be on home ice, and Columbus could struggle on the road. All right, let's play some cosign, no sign here, Dave. And for those who are new to the podcast or haven't listened before, and it's been a couple of weeks since we've had this segment, basically Dave and I are going to make statements to each other. If we agree with the statement, we co-sign it. If we disagree, we no sign it. We've got a Maple Leafs one, and we've also got a league-wide one as well for you guys. So, Dave, why don't you kick things off?
All right. The Leafs will clinch the Atlantic Division this year.
The Leafs will clinch they're what, like 5 points up?
So I know Florida's winning right now, so I think it could be a 3-point lead after tonight. But they have the best points percentage among teams in the Atlantic Division and second in the Eastern Conference.
So I'm going to preface this by saying this is with the assumption that Auston Matthews does remain healthy the rest of the year, because that is obviously going to be a big difference maker. So assuming everyone's healthy, I'm going to co-sign it, Dave. I think that the Maple Leafs are playing well enough, and they've been able to play some games tight and grind out some victories. They've been able to blow teams out every now and then as well. Like, they've been winning in multiple ways, and I think they're kind of starting to figure out how to play Berube's way, but also make sure that they get their offense as well. And that's kind of what we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks, especially with William Nylander. Like, he's playing, as on the line as he possibly can when it pertains to playing a defensive game, a structured game. But sometimes, he goes a little rogue and he squeaks out in behind the D, and he ends up getting those goals and those opportunities, those breakaways each and every game. He's been burying them. I saw a stat today that he leads the NHL with 13 breakaway goals this season. The next best player only has 8. He leads by 5 extra breakaway goals than the next best, and that is Leon Draisaitl. Or maybe it was just rush goals in general. That was Leon Draisaitl, who leads the NHL in goals in total. So just goes to show how important that rush offense is for Toronto. And I feel like they're starting to finally figure out how to kind of blend that skill, talent, and structure all together. And it should allow them to win some games here down the stretch. So assuming good health for everyone, yeah, man, I think it's very possible. And additionally, Florida doesn't seem to be as good as they were a year ago. Tampa's taken a little bit of a step back, and we saw Toronto beat them the other night. Boston's not anywhere near where they were. I still don't think that, Ottawa and Montreal and Buffalo and Detroit are going to get themselves into the mix. So, yeah, I think Toronto, they're at the top of the food chain at this point, halfway through the season. I think they could finish there, win the division, and put themselves in a pretty good spot to get a good round one matchup. Cosign.
Yeah. Do you know, now, minus the COVID year, do you know when was the last time the Leafs clinched the division title?
Oh, would that be like 2002?
The 1999-2000 season.
Wow.
So this could be the first time in 25 years I believe we would have a division title in a traditional division format and traditional season.
Crazy. Well, we'll see if they can finish strong. Continue to get it done. Do you co-sign your own statement?
I co-sign it.
Yeah.
I think this is because they've, even with some play, they've been able to maintain this division lead for a bit. And so this is what makes it feel different than previous years.
Yeah. Yeah. They've been able to stop the bleeding and start wins, right? Like, they had that 3-game losing streak, and it's like, oh no. It's like, relax. It's only 3 games. We'll go out here and win the next 3. And they did. But hasn't changed. They still say, it's only 3 games. It's only 3 games. That's it. Only 3 games. All right. Auston Matthews has been on fire since returning from his injury. He's got 7 goals in 8 games since coming back. Auston Matthews will, in fact, end up playing for Team USA at the Four Nations Cup.
I'm going to co-sign it. He looks a lot healthier than he did the first time he came back. Now, does that mean I'm like full out okay with it? Part of me is just like, you know what, just like take the week, take the 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks off?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Take the time, relax. Don't need to worry about doing anything more than you don't need to do. But something just tells me he was one of those guys that was first picked to play in this tournament. And I'm pretty sure the NHL, if they found out the Leafs were going to be holding out Auston Matthews from this tournament, you know, they ain't going to be too happy either. Now, it's not up to the NHL to decide that, but you know, the NHL will.
It's not up to the Leafs either. Technically, Austin's got to make that decision. Yeah. I mean, Toronto can kind of, you know, skirt around telling him not to play, or they'd prefer if he didn't. But ultimately, it's up to him. But yeah, the way that he's played since Cup, which is crazy because when he got re-injured and that re-aggravated his injury and he missed those few games there, it was like, okay, there's no chance this guy's going to be playing in Four Nations. The team can't allow him to do it. Like, it's just Austin should not play out of you know, if he has any respect for the crest. And now the way that he's playing, it's like, man, it's going to be tough to tell him that he doesn't look healthy enough to play. It's kind of funny how in less than a month, in like a 3-week span, how different we feel about Matthews playing in this tournament.
Yeah, it's something that when Brad Treliving said didn't really put a little cold water on him playing, I'm like, yeah, this sounds like they probably have had this discussion with Matthews.
Yeah,
and he probably said, no, if I'm good, I'm going to play.
Yep. All right. I think that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts at. Receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the game tonight. Leafs, Blue Jackets, 7:00 puck drop at Scotiabank Arena. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.